to Mr. Angel Horna, Vice Chair of the Legal Committee, 6th Committee of the Assembly. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Co-Chair. The 6th Committee, as you know, the primary forum for the consideration of legal questions in the General Assembly, held its annual session from 2 October to the 10th of November 2017. 30 plenary meetings were held, and the committee also established 2 working groups, which held a further total of 6 meetings. For the 22 substantive agenda items allocated to it, the 6th Committee proposed 17 draft resolutions and draft decisions, and 5 draft decisions, all of which were subsequently adopted by the General Assembly in December. In preparing for the annual session of the 6th Committee, the Bureau continued to take into account several proposals for revitalizing the committee's working methods contained in a lessons learned paper that was prepared by the Bureau of the 68th session in 2013 and has been revised on a yearly basis by a subsequent Bureau of the Committee. The Bureau's efforts in relation to revitalization centered primarily on implementing existing initiatives. For example, the 6th Committee continued to implement a practice whereby it did not schedule formal meetings on certain dates, which the General Assembly in Resolution 69/250 recognized as having special significance. One such day was observed during the session last year. The work program of the committee was arranged in such a manner that interest delegations were given the opportunity to hold informal consultations on that day. During the session, the 6th Committee held its annual exchange of views on its working methods in the context of the agenda item entitled Revitalization of the Work of the GA. The 6th Committee continued the practice commenced at the last session of holding the debate on the agenda item earlier in the session so as to allow delegations more time to consult each other and their capitals on the proposed work program for the following year. Such arrangement proved particularly useful since the committee had to consider a revised commencement date in 2018 as a consequence of the opening date of the 73rd session of the General Assembly. The Bureau also continued to be proactive in addressing a further issue of common concern among delegations, namely the overlap in the work program with other scheduled meetings. In particular, in addition to the consideration of the report of the International Court of Justice, those relating to the consideration of the reports of the International Criminal Court and of the International Residual Mechanism for Criminal Tribunals. This has been a matter of concern for many delegations, particularly small delegations, for several years, since the items typically require the attention of the same legal expert. I'm glad to report that with the assistance of the Secretariat, the Bureau was again able to reach out to presidencies of the courts and tribunals in question and to put into place an arrangement according to which a common schedule for 2018, minimizing overlap, was agreed on. On the basis of that understanding, the 6th Committee adopted a proposed work program for the 73rd session, which specifically anticipating the holding of related meetings in the GA plenary. In addition, the 6th Committee agreed on commencement and conclusion dates for 2018, which sought to minimize as much as possible overlap with the work of, for instance, the Oceans and Law of the Sea agenda and relevant meetings of the Working Group of the International Criminal Court. Such initiatives to limit the overlap with the work being undertaken elsewhere, which have been implemented by the Bureau of the 6th Committee for the last few sessions, have generally been welcomed by all delegations. The Bureau further continued to the practice of encouraging the holding of informal briefings and side events for the benefit of delegates. The purpose of the briefings was both to share information and to encourage dialogue among delegations and other stakeholders, including, for instance, the members of the International Law Commission present in New York. This initiative was particularly successful again this year, with a number of such events being held in the margins of the session of the 6th Committee. In relation to this, the Bureau also encourages the coordination with the organizers of the so-called Meeting of Legal Advisors during the International Law Week every year. I would also like to thank the Secretariat for the inclusion of the Sixth Committee in the newly established e-delegate portal, which has proved also particularly useful for the circulation of draft resolutions, including the electronic registration of co-sponsorship of draft resolutions. The Bureau intends to continue the established practice of holding a handover meeting with the Bureau for the following session. That Bureau will be encouraged to build on the work of the present and prior Bureau in implementing the just described new practices or innovations aimed at continuously improving and revitalizing the works of the Sixth Committee. One of the areas for consideration at future sessions of the Sixth Committee continues to be the ways of improving the quality of the debate and interaction between delegations during the session, with a view to promoting new and innovative ways of reaching agreement on the issues currently dividing states. One suggestion being proposed by the Bureau, as reflected in a further revision of the lessons learned paper, to be shared with the next Bureau, is the possibility of preparing throughout the session a continuously updated, consolidated summary of the status of the consideration of each agenda item to be posted on the website of the Sixth Committee. Mr. Co-Chair, I would like to end this statement by recalling, colleagues, what the President of the International Court of Justice said last year in his now customary informal briefing to the Sixth Committee delegates. The regulation of relations by law is better than the regulation of relations by force, end of quote. This is a very important message to our committee, the merit of which has been working on the basis of consensus. Thank you very much.